Syfy's adaptation of Grant Morrison's Happy serves up a demented dark comedy that squeezes the last bit of juice from the tired anti-hero formula. This is an early review of Syfy's Happy, which premieres on Wednesday, December 6. A few years ago, you couldn't swing a dead cat and not hit a TV show with a brooding, difficult but totally awesome man as its lead. From Tony Soprano to Don Draper to Walter White, the golden age of television was marked by its surplus of difficult men who are great at their jobs but terrible when it came to the management of even the most basic of human relationships. Men who played by their own rules and were ultimately rewarded and adored for their antics, mostly by those regardless of whether or not that's what the creators of such characters had in mind. Though it's less prevalent and more heavily criticized, TV is still chock of anti-heroes and difficult men. Shows like Syfy's, which makes an honest attempt to do the Formula One better by taking it to such an obvious extreme that any sort of hero worship would seem totally out of question. But There's a Hiccup series star Christopher Maloney is so able in the role that a little misplaced adulation simply can't be avoided. Based on the graphic novel of the same name by Grant Morrison and Derek Robertson, hails from Brian Taylor of Neville Dennett Taylor fame, who is joined by Morrison in the scriptwriting department along with Patrick McManus to bring this 7-episode adaptation to life. The result is a deeply demented dark comedy that serves up one frenetic action comedy set piece after another, in the style patented by Taylor and his usual directing partner Mark Neville-Dean in films like and Taylor's visual style is well suited to the material, delivering stylized, exaggerated violence with a wry smile and cartoon sheen to accentuate Morrison's already over-the-top narrative. Related, Syfy's Happy trailer teases extremely graphic comic book series like a Shane Black movie gone haywire, unfolds over the holidays, coating Christmastime with a patina of grime, as Maloney's disgraced super cop turned hitman Nick Sachs contends with a failing heart, a hit gone wrong, a mob boss out to kill him for a password he may or may not know, and the manifestation of a absurdly cheery purple cartoon unicorn named Happy and voiced by Patton Oswalt. Happy is the imaginary friend of a little girl named Haley, along with several other children, was kidnapped by a demented killer with a Santa fetish. Happy, for reasons that remain mercifully unexplained, materialized and sought out the absolute worst person imaginable to save a little girl in need. Even a cursory look at the plot tells you this is perfect material for someone like Taylor, whose past efforts suggest the jankier the better when it comes to circumstances of the story he's engaged with. Taylor isn't particularly interested in elevating the material. He's looking to immerse himself in it, to splash around in the murky grey waters of a lunatic killer communing with and corrupting an imaginary flying horse while on the road to a prescribed redemption. Taylor's characters often work best starting at rock bottom. That was true of protagonist Chev Chelios, as well as S. Cable, and, to a certain degree, S. Johnny Blaze, and it's certainly true of Nick Sachs, who begins the series with a hallucinatory suicide fantasy that sees his head turned into a geyser of blood while he cuts a merry rug with a group of scantily clad dancers. As far as introductions go, it's the rockiest of bottoms, which means Nick has nowhere to go but up, and yet, somehow finds new depths to which its character can sink. As Nick puts it, his life is in a description that, admittedly, might limit the audience size for that seems perfectly fine for this hyper-adrenalized series. And it suits Maloney well, as he brings an unblinking and hilarious manic intensity to role. Imagine if John McClane and Gene from had a baby and you'd end up with a pretty close approximation of the kind of character Nick Sachs is. At one point Happy sums up Nick by telling him, the performance is a demanding one and Maloney is why committed to going 100 miles per hour whether he's killing a room of goons wearing nothing but a hospital gown or eating a hamburger while talking the finer points of being a dirtbag with a tiny flying blue horse. Maloney brings a brutal physicality to the role that turns up the volume on the tough guy dialogue that's so often played for laughs, which gives it just enough breathing room so as to not feel oppressively savage. Maloney is so much fun to you almost forget the show's main draw is talking CGI horse. Oswalt, who replaced former SNL regular Bobby Moynihan, imbues Happy with a charming naivete befitting a child's imaginary friend. The characterization strikes an unexpectedly unsubtle chord as the dynamic between the childlike manifestation and Nick's degeneracy opens the door for some raw laughs. Like most everything else, in-jokes come at you like they were shot out of a cannon, but it works because everything is taken to such an exaggerated extreme, there's little time to process amplified element before you're bombarded with the next. It goes without saying, is best enjoyed by strapping in and just going along with one hell of an unhinged ride, because there can't be too many plot lines running simultaneously. Nick's adventures with Happy run parallel to the presumed redemption of another dirty cop played by Lily Mirojnick, and the ambitions of a mob boss named Blue, played by the always great Richie Costa, who is in Joe Pantoliano mode at one point, eating a grape and formulating an amusingly circuitous metaphor around its potential to be turned into a fine wine. Blue desperately wants a password shared to the crime family's recently assassinated heir apparent by the late Don on his own deathbed. Meanwhile, Patrick Fischler brings one more deranged psychopath to an already crowded party as the uncomfortably ever-smiling Smoothie, who barely survives his bloody first encounter with Nick. It seems like one distraction too many, but, for a show whose conceit revolves around a psychotic conversing with a flying cartoon horse only he can see, the more distractions the merrier, as they take the burden off the technical complications associated with an all-CGI character, while also reducing the amount to which Nick and Happy have to shoulder the weight of an admittedly thin story. Won't be for everyone. Syfy isn't shying away from coarse language. There are enough F-bombs dropped in the first 2 hours to make Tony Soprano exclaim. And the violence is brutal and over the top. But Maloney is so much fun too, and Oswalt is so genuine that the inherent cartooniness of the series is actually enhanced by a pair of mismatched cartoons. That said, the show might be too in love with its rascally anti-hero, which makes it difficult at times to reconcile its character with the downward trend of difficult men in television. There's opportunity here for the series to do something new with the characterization, and hope it does, because Maloney's performance is funny enough to earn absolution of its own. Next, SYFY's Happy trailer promises a darkly funny comic book adaptation. Premieres Wednesday, December the 6th at 10 p.m. on Syfy.